Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, the madness rolls on. That's right, the NCAA tournament is cutting it down to the round of 32, and we're going to break down all 8 games on the Saturday slate, tell you what you can expect for each game, as well as who needs to be in or out of your DFS lineups. Now, while we're kind of still lacking some buzzer beaters, some major upsets, some big-time drama in this NCAA tournament, it's kind of created some really interesting, really good matchups between some really good basketball teams over the next 2 days, and we're going to be here breaking it all down. So make sure you're subscribe to the channel that we can be with us for the rest of our content throughout the rest of the NCAA tournament, because we will be having an episode for the Sunday slate, as well as the regional finals, as well as some NIT slates if those are offered by DraftKings next week. Now, also, I cannot stress this enough. This is a time of year where my channel generally grows pretty well because it's March Madness and more people are playing college basketball DFS and betting on college basketball, right? So please help me out. If you're watching this, please hit the like button on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, please rate and review. And please tell a friend. If you know anybody who's looking to get more into college basketball betting or DFS, send them my way. Help the community grow. And this is a big time of year for that. And I really do appreciate you guys' help. All right. With that being said, though, we got 8 games to break down, so let's go ahead and dive right. Now, I got to be honest, one of my biggest gripes with the NCAA tournament happens in this round. I got to be honest, I've never really understood why we get one standalone game at noon, another standalone game at 2:40, and then the rest of the games at night. It just kind of feels like we should really be balancing these games out over the course of the day more, so that way there's a break in the action, and then there's not an overload at night where you feel like you can't really watch all the games at the same time. But anyway, that's the way they've done it again this year. And DraftKings is kind of compensating by giving us a 8-game main slate and then a 6-game night slate after the first 2 standalone games. It is what it is. We're going to break down all 8 games, though. The first game of the day is an absolute banger. It is Purdue taking on McNeese. KenPom has this one as Purdue 75-69. That is a 6-point spread with a total of 144 points, which ranks 3rd on this slate. A big reason why is because both these teams are pretty good on. Purdue ranked 7th on offensive efficiency. McNeese, they're 59th overall, and KenPom 63rd on offensive efficiency. That's not bad. Purdue's defense, it's vulnerable in one area. They rank outside the top 350 in 2-point field goal defense, but overall they're 63rd in defensive efficiency as a whole. This game is not going to be played at a breakneck pace, though. Purdue's 297th and McNeese is 278th in tempo. Now, let's talk about the McNeese side. So we talked about on the Thursday slate how McNeese has multiple down transfers. There's some guys on this roster that played in bigger conferences that are very talented that Will Wade brought to McNeese. And now it's looking like, hey, they're there for a reason. They look like they belong. They're an athletic team. They're really good. And honestly, when Will McNeese heads over to NC State, he's probably going to take a few of these guys with him because in actuality, they're really high major players, right? Now, what ended up happening on the Thursday slate was they started their normal starting 5 of Garcia, Richards, Copeland, Shoemate, and Charles, right? Christian Shoemate is the highest priced one on DraftKings. He was great in the game against Clemson at 33 DraftKings points. He's generally not the most high player. I'm kind of going to let somebody else chase that, in all honesty. I think that you can make the case that it's a pretty good price tag for him, but I'm not going to chase a guy that doesn't have a great usage rate and kind of had a uncharacteristically good performance in round 1. A guy that had an uncharacteristically bad performance in round 1 was Javon Garcia. He was one of my favorite cash game plays on Thursday, but it just didn't really pan out. He was 0 for 6 from the field. Still played 31 minutes, though. I'm kind of here for a bounce back on Javon Garcia. I don't think he could possibly be as bad as he was against Clemson. And because he was bad against Clemson, he's going to be very lowly owned on this one. Y'all, when you play NCAA tournament DFS, a lot of times guys who play well in round 1 are going to be super popular in round 2, even if they get priced up, because people just have recency bias stuck in their heads, right? And a great case of this is Quadir Copeland. He's at $5,600. He was great in that game against Clemson, played 31 minutes, put up 32 DraftKings points. But I got to be honest, I'm going to go back to Quadir Copeland because A, DraftKings did not price him up. And B, if you watch the game, the ball was in his hands a lot. Supremely high usage player, very high floor, very high upside. Cannot stress how good a play Quadir Copeland is in all formats because he is not being priced up. Now, Sincere Parker is a guy and another guy we're going to talk about is a guy that could go kind of one or two ways. He's not going to play a ton of minutes, but while he's out there, he's a really active, really high usage player. Against Clemson, played 19 minutes, put up 18 DraftKings points. I would much prefer him to be like a 4K player if he was. I think he'd be very playable with that profile. Brandon Murray, though, is a super high risk, high reward play. In that game against Clemson, he took 18 shots coming off the bench and put up 37 DraftKings points, had 21, 4 and 3 and 3 steals. Like, that's just an incredible stat line for a guy coming off the bench. I don't think you can expect that again, but it does have to be said that he played higher than average minutes for him. He took his highest shot attempts of the season by far. Like, maybe there's a little something there. Like, I'm not expecting 37 again, but he's only $4,400. So you only really need like 18, 19 DraftKings points out of him to feel pretty good about getting him in value. And he's done that 2 of his last 3 games. So I think he's a high risk, high upside play at $4,400 that I would not mind going to. And then, oh, by the way, their big man is Joe Charles. He kind of got himself in some foul trouble against Clemson. If he stays out of foul trouble, he could have a good game against Purdue's interior defense, but that's easier said than done against Trey Kaufman-Renn. So speaking of that Purdue side, Purdue against High Point, their game plan offensively played pretty much how I thought it was going to. It was very much a 2-man game between Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. That is going to be what you're going to see here in this one. However, I will say this. I really have my doubts about Purdue having as much success against McNeese as they did against High Point. So if you watch the Clemson-McNeese game, Will Wade threw the kitchen sink at Clemson. He was running zones. He was running a matchup zone, like just throwing every kind of defense at Clemson just to confuse them and frustrate them and keep them guessing the whole game. He can very much do the same thing with the Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn pick and roll, because that's what Purdue does. If you're able to throw different coverages at them and keep them guessing and keep them confused, you might be able to limit their success a little bit. But that's still going to be what Purdue does. So Smith and Kaufman-Renn, supremely high usage players. I think they're decent plays. I don't think the matchup is as juicy against McNeese as it was against High Point, but I do think that you're pretty much guaranteed to get 30 plus DraftKings points out of both of them because of how much they're going to have the ball in their hands. Now, among the supporting cast, Fletcher Lawyer was not great in that High Point game, only took 4 shots. Jakari Harris had a few splash plays, only 13 DraftKings points though. The real shining star for Purdue in that High Point game was Camden Heide. So Camden Heide is kind of like a smaller power forward type. When they play him, they move Trey Kaufman-Renn to the 5. And it's something that they've done a few times, like earlier in the season, was they give him a lot of minutes, right? And they just play smaller. It's what they did against High Point. And he played 31 minutes, 25 DraftKings points. And that's pretty darn good performance, and DraftKings only priced him up to $4,200. I'm not saying you can expect that again, but McNeese is not an overly big lineup. You can get away with playing small and playing Heide as your 4, as a floor spacer. You know, I kind of like the idea of going back to him. He's not going to be like a core player or anything, but he's going to make the player pool, because I think that there's a chance that they could just go back to that same strategy. And oh, by the way, all of Heidi's minutes came at the expense of Caleb First, who just did not have a great game against High Point at all. All right, next up, we've got Arkansas taking on St. John's. This is an interesting one. KenPom has it as St. John's 73-67. That is a game total of 140 points, which ranks 6th on this slate. And the crazy thing is that both of these teams get up and down. Arkansas ranks 67th in tempo, whereas St. John's ranks 52nd. But both these teams are much better defensively than offensively. In offensive efficiency, Arkansas is 72nd, St. John's is 64th. Defensively, Arkansas is 18th. St. John's is... Are they first or second? First. Yeah. So this is just 2 really good defensive teams, but there's going to be a lot of possessions. So you can kind of play some of these guys that are going to pick up peripheral stats, because there's going to be a lot of possessions. Now, first things first, Adu Thero might play this game for Arkansas. That would mess the entire rotation up if he plays, because they've really started to settle into kind of their rotation. And even with Boogie Flane coming back, it was very clear what was happening with their rotation, right? But with Thero out, Trevon Brazile is playing as much minutes as he can handle without getting in foul trouble. In that Kansas game, he got in first half foul trouble, which means he only, and I use the word only in quotation marks, played 27 minutes. That's still pretty high for a forward in this day and age. So Trevon Brazile, guy that's going to be out there a ton if Thero is out. Jonas Adu, though, was very much the starting center of the whole game. Played 39 minutes, put up 19 shots, 41 DraftKings points. And then Zvonimir Ivasic is almost out of the rotation. He only played 4 minutes against Kansas. That's kind of how the forwards have been rolling for Arkansas. With Billy Richmond kind of playing this supporting role off the bench, he played 19 minutes against Kansas. Thero coming back would change all of that. I just don't really know where the minutes would come from, who they would go to. And if he's in, that's really going to throw a wrench into playing these Arkansas front court guys. But as it stands, if Thero is out, I think Adu is a great play at cost at $6,800, because they've now shown us that he's going to play a ton of minutes, and he's going to be a significant part of the offense. Now, at the guard spot, their wrench was thrown in last game, right? John L. Davis and DJ Wagner had been carrying the load for this team. And now Boogie Fland is back from injury and he ends up playing big time minutes. Now, what the good news is Fland's minutes did not really come from Davis or Wagner. Both those guys played over 30 minutes. Fland played 24 minutes off the bench and he took a lot of minutes from Carter Knox. All right. So Fland, I think, stands to reason he's going to play more minutes in the last one, because it looked like down the stretch Cal really wanted him out there. He was in the stretch run of the game, right? At $5,200, you can get Boogie Fland at more than 24 minutes. I think that's a great price to pay. I think, yes, there's a little bit of risk involved, but I think that he is a very solid play with the minutes looking the way they're looking. And Davis and Wagner, I don't think are bad plays, even if Fland does end up playing more minutes, because Fland's minutes aren't really coming from them. John L. Davis still played 31 minutes and put up 30 DraftKings points against Kansas. DJ Wagner played the entire game, put up 30 DraftKings points against Kansas. So I think all three of those Arkansas guards are going to be in play for me. Now, on the St. John's side, this is a very interesting one because they've got another wrench that could be thrown into things with their rotation, and that wrench is named Davon Smith. Davon Smith, when he was starting, was a very effective player that would put up peripheral stats all over the place. He's been coming off the bench since he returned from injury his last 4 games overall. Against Omaha, it was the most he played. He played 26 minutes, put up 21 DraftKings points. Look, y'all, if he's going to play 26 minutes, I think it's quite likely that he can get you another 21 DraftKings points against Arkansas. He's a great peripheral stat guy. He puts up stats in a hurry. And if he were to be back in the starting lineup, he would be an absolute smash play at $5,200. I think he's a guy that if you're playing enough lineups needs to be in your pool, but probably not like there's not enough certainty there to make him a core player or anything like that. Kadari Richmond is a guy that I do think could be a core play, though. He's going to play a ton of minutes as long as the game is close. He is another guy that gets a ton of peripheral stats. I like him more if Davon Smith. Excuse me, y'all. It's been a long week. I like him a lot more if Davon Smith is coming off the bench. If Davon Smith is back in the starting lineup, I think that's going to come a little bit at the expense of Kadari Richmond, and I would have less interest in him. RJ Lewis is a guy I have interest in, though. He's going to play max minutes. He is, St. John's highest usage player. He can rack up peripheral stats. There's a lot of good boxes to check off with RJ Lewis. And if Arkansas is going to play the 3 guards, they don't really have a natural matchup for him. So I really do think this is a good spot for RJ Lewis at $9,000. Is he the best, spend up on the slate? Probably not, but he's going to make my player pool. And then I also like Zuby Ejiofor. Anytime you get a big man on a DraftKings slate that will play like 35 plus minutes in a close game, you kind of got to be interested in that. And Zuby Ejiofor is one of those guys. I don't think Arkansas is the best matchup in the world, but you get a guy who's going to be out on the floor a ton. All right, next up, we got Michigan taking on Texas A&M. Ken Pom has this one being 70-69 in favor of Texas A&M. This game total is 139 points. That is, the St. John's Arkansas game was 5th on the slate. This game is 6th on the slate. My bad. I had that miscalculated. Big reason why is because neither of these teams are particularly great shooting teams. Michigan ranks 46th in offensive efficiency, 13th in defensive efficiency, and 65th in tempo. Texas A&M 45th on offense, 8th on defense, 227th on tempo. Michigan's a team that gives up a ton of turnovers. They're 329th in offensive turnover rate, but they rank 5th in effective height. They're a really tall team, which is going to directly counteract what Texas A&M is going to try to do. Texas A&M is genuinely a terrible shooting team, but they're the best offensive rebounding team in the nation. They will throw up some garbage just to go, take it to the dump. They're really a team that they throw up bad shots and look to rebound it and put it back in. That's kind of their whole offensive game plan. It's really weird. I don't particularly enjoy it, in case you can't tell by the tone of my voice. But basically, here's what we got. Michigan is a team with 2 7-footers. They're going to take away Texas A&M's biggest advantage, which is those offensive rebounds. So I think it's going to be a big-time rebounding game from Wolf and Golden. Them two are going to have to stay on the floor. They're going to have to stay out of foul trouble, and they're going to have to make Texas A&M pay with the boards. So I really do think Danny Wolf at $8,500, Vlad Golden at $8,000, very solid plays in my opinion. Golden, I think, is a good buy the dip. He had very poor performance against UC San Diego, but it's because he couldn't stay out of foul trouble. I don't see a need for him to foul Texas A&M's bigs because they're not great scorers. Just wall up and get the board when they miss. So I think that Wolf and Golden are both going to be for me. Trey Donaldson continues to be priced about correctly, I think. He's at $6,700. He is very clearly turning into the lead guard on this Michigan team, kind of helping alleviate the turnover problems, because when Danny Wolf was handling the ball all the time, he couldn't stop turning it over. Trey Donaldson has helped them out with that. He's taken double-digit shots in 3 of the last 4 games, 25 fantasy points in each of the last 4 games. Trey Donaldson is a pretty solid spot. I think if you're playing cash, if you're playing GPPs, I think you can play Donaldson in all formats. He's a guy that I do like. After that, Roddy Gale Jr. might be the only other Michigan guy I'm interested in. He is probably their best all-around scoring guard, in my opinion. He played 27 minutes against UC San Diego. Dusty May knows that he needs to get some scoring out of his guards, and the way he's going to do that is by playing Roddy Gale. I think $4,200 is a very reasonable price tag to pay for him. Now, on the Texas A&M side, they're a super difficult team to handicap, right? Because of the fact that they're just really not this good offensive team, because they have so many guys that will come in and just get rebounds because they play such a deep rotation. It's just really tough to figure them out, right? The one guy you don't have to figure out is Wade Taylor. He's going to be their highest usage player. He's going to have the ball. He's going to play 30-plus minutes, and I think $7,600 is a reasonable price tag to pay for Wade Taylor. Kind of feel the same way about him that I felt with R.J. Lewis, where I don't feel like he is the best overall play on the slate, even the best overall play in that 7K range, but he's good enough, and the floor is high enough, the ceiling is high enough that he's going to make my player pool because there's a chance that he could explode for 50-plus DraftKings points, but if not, it looks pretty safe that he's going to get you 3 to 4x value. Zurich Phelps is their other high-usage guard, but he comes off the bench, so he's a lot more volatile than Wade Taylor is. Not the biggest fan of playing him in DraftKings formats. Manny Obaseki has been starting and been playing pretty well for them. Against Yale, he only played 20 minutes, but he was pretty effective when he was out there, 11.5 DraftKings points. I don't mind going back to him as a value play that nobody is going to play, but he has shown the potential to go for a lot when he gets minutes, and he has been getting minutes lately. Now let's go ahead and talk about the forwards for this A&M team. This is what's really frustrating. So Anderson Garcia is the forward that will play the whole game. He is basically just an Energizer bunny who knows that his job out there is to go get boards, and that's what he does. And he just racks up stats that way because it's very often that he's getting you an offensive and getting, points or assists right off of it, or he's getting a defensive board and he's turning it right into an assist. That's just what he does. He's playing a ton of minutes. Very, very safe play at $6,000 that also has some upside as well. Now, the big bigs, because Garcia is more of a 3-4 kind of guy. The big bigs, Payne, Coleman, and Washington are the ones that are hard to handicap. Pharrell Payne, had a great game against Yale. He played 25 minutes, which was the most he's played in a while. Was 10 for 12 from the field, was absolutely dominant. But let's be honest, he was going up against a future MBAs. I said MBA, not a future NBA player, right? I really should have been clear about that. I maybe should have come up with a better joke than that for Yale. But, basically he was going up against a bunch of guys, to quote the old NCAA commercial, who will be going pro in something other than sports. This is not that type of game. Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf are a pretty tough defense. They match his size. They match his strength. I don't think he's going to be able to repeat that again. Now, if you told me he was going to be getting 25 minutes again, I would absolutely put him in my pool because, he's very likely to get you 4x value with that minute total. But I don't think you can expect the same 40 fantasy point performance now that there's some competition down low. Pharrell Payne's outburst came at the expense of Henry Coleman, who only played 14 minutes. Prior to that game, Coleman was significantly outplaying and better than Pharrell Payne, but Pharrell Payne really flipped the script on that one. I think Coleman will be a great flop lag play. If you want to go back to Coleman, nobody's going to go to him because everybody's going to be playing Payne. I think that's a viable strategy. And then Solomon Washington kind of really ceded minutes to just both of those guys. He's not been great at all lately. I'm probably just totally crossing him off. All right, that is 3 games down, 5 to go. We're going to go ahead and take a quick. Now, before we continue, I do want to mention there are a few places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. I'm more than happy to answer any lineup questions if you reach out to me, as well as that's where I tweet out all updates for the show. So you can just kind of keep up with us that way and also get any advice and help that you need. Also, I'm in the Fantasy Corner Discord. The link is in the description on YouTube as well as on the audio feed. I cannot recommend it enough, y'all. If you're looking for a community to be a part of, a bunch of really smart and really good people that talk DFS for a lot of different sports, and are just in there all day talking plays, strategy, injury news, lineup news, just anything DFS. And the college basketball chat's one of the most popular ones. I cannot stress enough, it's a great community to be a part of. If you're looking to kind of grow, your community or your group of people with DFS, it's a great place to start, and I cannot recommend enough. And then also, I do write an article on my Patreon every single college DFS slate where I profile my core plays as well as why they are my core plays. So you can get, full information as to, why they're looking good. I can't just promise that, they're going to instantly plug in those plays and win thousands of dollars. It's not that easy. What I can promise is that you can get information from somebody who knows what they're doing with this stuff and can help you get better with your process. All right, now let's move on to game number 4, Drake versus Texas Tech. So KenPom has this one as Texas Tech 68-61. That is a total of 129 points. That is tied for the lowest game total on the slate. Big reason why is because these teams play pretty good defense. Texas Tech ranks 36th in defensive efficiency. Drake ranks 38th. But a big reason why the total is so low, the tempo. Drake ranks 364th in the nation in tempo. Yes, there are only 364 teams in Division One. They're the slowest team in Division One. And a big reason why is because you just can't speed them up. If you watch the Missouri game, there were times where Missouri would come out and press them, trying to speed them up, and Drake would just kind of casually break the press, get the ball across half court, and get into their offense, and just like it's a walk in the park, as what most teams do, which is try to break it, get a layup, and get the team out of the press. Drake was just content to break it, and get into their offense, right? So this game probably very unlikely to shoot out. Super unlikely to shoot out, but there are players that you can get at cost that I do think are pretty solid. Let's go ahead and start on the Drake side. As we talked about Drake before, they play their starters a crap ton of minutes because they played a methodical pace. Bennett Sturtz played the entire game against Missouri, which is his third straight game of playing the entire game. That's what he does. Against Missouri, he only put up 30 DraftKings points, but the usage is still there. The shot attempts are still there. He's a guy that can rack up peripheral stats. Texas Tech is a team that will kind of play some smaller guards. I think that kind of is a decent matchup for Bennett Sturtz, so I don't mind him at $8,700. I think he's far from the best play on the slate, but he's probably going to make my player pool. Tavion Banks is the guy that had the best fantasy outing against Missouri. 37 DraftKings points in 25 minutes in that game. He actually leads their team in usage rate overall, but he does come off the bench. So the minutes can be a little bit volatile, but the usage is there. He can rack up stats in a hurry. I don't think he's a I do think that all things considered, Texas Tech is a significantly worse matchup compared to Missouri, so I'm probably not expecting that same point total, but I am still expecting a 4x value return. Daniel Abreu cedes a lot of minutes to Tavion Banks, so like if you think that Banks is going to be chalk and you want to get an edge on the chalk, play Abreu, but I don't think the matchup is supreme for playing a big against them, so probably not my favorite overall play. Cam Manyow is a guy that could be needed in this game. So basically, everybody else in Drake's rotation is like 6'7" or shorter. Cam Manyow, which I learned from the broadcast, it's pronounced Manyow. Yes, somehow it's pronounced Manyow. He is a guy that is Drake's biggest overall player. They're going to need to find a way to guard JT Toppin. And so if Manyow is the guy that can guard JT Toppin, he's going to play significantly more minutes, but he's got to stay out of foul trouble, and he's going to have to be the one that does it. I don't mind the idea of getting to him at $4,800 because just what if he plays 25 plus minutes because they need his defense. Now, at the guard spots for Drake, we have Mitch Mascari, who's basically just a cardio king, and he is the cardio king, y'all. He's played every minute in each of the last 3 games. Only put up a maximum of 8 shots in one game, though. He's a 3-point specialist, but has been really cold as of late. So if you want to buy onto some shooting regression, you can. And if you think that this game is going to be played at any kind of tempo, he's a guy that racks up peripheral stats a lot because he's out on the floor a lot. He didn't make my player pool on Thursday. He's probably not going to make my player pool here on Saturday, but I get the argument because he's a guy that will literally play the entire game. Now, on the Texas Tech side, everything's got to start with JT Toppin, right? He is a great offensive player. We have a joke in the Fantasy Corner Discord where just every night you just play JT Toppin because there's a chance he could just go for 70 DraftKings points. That's just what he does. Yes, he actually has a 70 in his game log. So I don't think that this is necessarily going to be the best matchup in terms of pace that you will see for JT Toppin, but in terms of JT Toppin looking like a varsity player going up against a JV player, I think that's something that's going to happen here in this game. I don't think that Drake necessarily is equipped to guard JT Toppin, and so I think even though the pace of this game is about to be horrible, I think this is a really good spot for JT Toppin as one of the best pay-up options on the slate. Now, after that, we got to mention the injuries. So, backup big Emeli Yalaho has been out for a while. That led to increased minutes for Darion Williams as well as JT Toppin in game number 1, as well as Federico. Federico had a little bit of a cameo. Darion Williams actually had a higher usage rate than JT Toppin in round 1, played 30 minutes, took 15 shots, put up 27 DraftKings points. Williams was hurt coming into that game. There are no concerns about his health now. I think $6,500 is a super cheap price tag for him. This is a guy that we were routinely seeing in the 8K range before he started dealing with injuries and before blowouts started taking away some of his stats. So if we get a full game out of Darion Williams, even though the pace is awful in this game, the game total is awful, the matchup suits him well, the usage suits him well, the cost suits him well. I don't mind Darion Williams at $6,500. Probably would not play Toppins and Williams together because I think they kind of cancel each other out a little bit. Now, at the guard spot, Chance McMillan is their best all-around shooter. He is a wing. He has not played in their last 2 games, I believe, and he did not play against UNC Wilmington. If he's back at $4,600, that's an easy click to me. But I don't think he's going to be back. I really don't. They're being very cagey with information. Just calling it a lower body injury. I don't think he's going to be back. If he is not back, what that did lead to huge minutes for Christian Anderson and Kerwin Walton. Christian Anderson was the guy that I played. He only had 16 DraftKings points, could not buy a shot from behind the arc, was 1 for 8 from 3. Look, if McMillan's out, Anderson's going to play a ton. He's going to get some shots. If the shots fall, he's going to be a really good play, bottom line. The guy that was a really good play on Thursday, though, was Kerwin Walton. And I got to be honest, I missed the boat on this one. I should have had him in my player pool. I should have been smart enough to look at the game log and say, hey, when McMillan is out, Walton plays a lot of minutes, and he pretty much is a good look for 14 DraftKings points as long as McMillan's out. And he was at $3,800 on DraftKings, and I totally missed the boat. I'm sorry, $4,500 on DraftKings, and I totally missed the boat and didn't play him. And he put up 37 DraftKings points because he could not miss from 3. He was 8 for 19. He took a lot of them, but 8 for 19 is pretty good. I don't think we're going to get a repeat performance in this one. I really don't. So I'm probably going to let everybody else chase now that he's up at $5,000, and I'm probably not going to be playing Kerwin Walton. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but Elijah Hawkins at the buzzer tried to intentionally miss a shot in Thursday's game against UNCW because he wanted his 10th rebound, because his rebound would have given him a triple-double. He filled up the stat sheet against UNCW, even though he did not shoot the ball well at all. The usage rate was incredible. I'm probably not going back to him in this game, though, because you think about the way he put up that triple-double, it was because UNCW played with pace. UNCW tried to speed the game up. That is the opposite of what Drake is going to do. And now we're getting max price Elijah Hawkins. This is another one where I'm going to let other people chase that performance. And like I said, this is a game where I'm not looking to stack it up. So on the Drake side, I'm probably going to get just a little bit of Banks, a little bit of Menyau. On the Texas Tech side, I'm probably get some Toppin and Sims and a little bit of Anderson as long as McMillan is out. Now, this is going to be a fun game. Creighton taking on Auburn. KenPom has this one rated as Auburn 81-71. That is a 152-point total, which ranks second on the slate. I think this is going to be really cool because I think that both of these teams, Creighton is going to pose a very unique matchup for Auburn with the style that they play defense, which is we have 7-footer Ryan Kalkbrenner. He has a real knack for blocking shots. We're going to camp him underneath this rim. Even if you want to run pick and rolls, we're going to run drop coverage, and we're going to have Kalkbrenner sitting there waiting for you if you want to try to attack, right? So let's go ahead and talk about how that plays out for Creighton, right? So Kalkbrenner, $9,200. He's going to play the whole game, double upside, great shot blocker. I don't mind it. The thing I worry about is him getting into foul trouble against Janai Broome. But the good news is I don't think anybody's going to play him. And so in DFS, sometimes these guys that, they come with a little risk, maybe there's a little red flags on them that don't look like a great play. Sometimes they turn into a good play when nobody plays them. So I don't mind the idea of being an unowned Kalkbrenner at 9,200. Jemiah Neal coming off of a ceiling game against 8,100. I got to be honest, I watched most of that game. I didn't watch the whole game because, let's be honest, it got uninteresting in the second half. Against Louisville, he was great, 56 DraftKings points, but it looked to me like Creighton was targeting the weaker Louisville defenders by getting the ball to Jemiah Neal. I don't think that's going to be the case here against Auburn. Auburn doesn't have any weak defenders, so I'm probably going to be off of him. I don't mind getting a discount on Ashford at $7,900 coming off of a 39 DraftKings point performance, where Auburn will push the pace. Auburn ranks 144th in tempo. That's no slouch. So I don't mind the idea of getting to Ashworth here at that discounted price. The other two guys I will talk about are the other two starters. They played the starters a ton. Literally, the Creighton starting lineup was only off the floor for 23 total minutes against Louisville. Jackson McAndrew is, kind of much maligned as his freshman season has been, still played 30-plus minutes in that game. And this is not a bad spot to play a guy that's going to play 30-plus minutes at 4,800. Jason Green, I would prefer to play over McAndrew because he's been better, played 29 minutes in that game against Louisville, 20.5 DraftKings points in that game, $4,700 for him. It's pricey, but it's doable. I think he's a very safe option. They just got to stay out of foul trouble. Now, on the Auburn side, everything starts with Janai Broome, right? But he did not get there against Alabama State because he only played 27 minutes because the game was lopsided. Creighton, which we expect them to keep this game pretty close, Janai Broome's going to see max minutes, and this is the cheapest price tag that we have gotten Janai Broome at since the new year. Yeah, literally since non-conference play, this is the highest we've gotten Janai Broome. And the only reason he was cheap then was because there was a game that he left early with injury. Like, this is a smash spot for Broome if I've ever seen one. Yes, Kalkbrenner is an interesting matchup, but if they're just going to run drop coverage, or if they're going to leave Kalkbrenner one-on-one and not help, I think that Broome can still get his $10,100. Good price tag for Broome. Chad Baker-Mazara, look, if you enjoy gambling, knock yourself out. It just seems to me like he does something dumb every game, and I don't know why Bruce Pearl insists on playing him so much. Yes, he's really talented, but he does a lot of dumb stuff. I'm not a big fan of playing him in DFS because you never know when he's going to mess around and get a technical foul and get ejected. Maybe that's unfair, but I'm not the biggest fan. Tahai Pettiford is the guy that I would be the biggest fan of here in this game, though. So basically, if Creighton is going to run drop coverage against Auburn, the guards are going to have to make jump shots to beat that defense. Tahai Pettiford is a guy who can make jump shots, and he's playing very solid minutes. The SEC tournament, they went down, but they were back up against Alabama State to 28. And if he plays a lot of minutes, he's going to put up a lot of DraftKings points. Tahai Pettiford, really solid play at $5,100. I think back to the Houston game way back in November. Houston kind of did the same deal where, hey, we're going to pack the paint, we're going to make you shoot jump shots, and Tahai Pettiford had 31 DraftKings points in that game. Now, that game was like 5 months ago, but still, I think that he's a very solid play at 5,100. Denver Jones, the actual starting point guard at 4,800. I don't think he's as talented as a shot maker as Pettiford is, but he's going to play a ton of minutes, and he's going to put up a ton of peripheral stats as well, because he is the one running the show now. I don't mind getting to him at that price tag either. I think if you're still alive in the Survivor contest, which I'm sweating it out, I'm trying to get one entry through to Saturday. I think that he would be a very solid play for that. Miles Kelly is kind of just a hit or miss shooter, in my opinion. If he's hitting, he could break a DraftKings slate. If he's not hitting, he's going to kill you. Not generally my preferred play because he does up a lot of peripheral stats. All right, next up, we got game number 6, Wisconsin taking on BYU. KenPom has this one being 79-76 in favor of Wisconsin. That is a 155-point total, which is the highest point total on the entire slate. Big reason why is because both these teams are really good offensively. BYU's 10th offensively, Wisconsin is 13th. Like, you just got two really good offensive teams here, right? BYU, statistically, they are an elite rebounding team. They take a lot of threes. They have a high assist rate. Like, this is a team that racks up a ton of total fantasy points for that reason. But the problem for the season BYU has been that they just never really nailed down a rotation, and it was super hard to predict who was going to play the maximum minutes. The good news is, in round 1, we started to see a little bit of clarity as to who was going to play all the minutes for BYU. Let's break it down. Richie Saunders in that game played 30 minutes. That's pretty high for him, if we're being honest. Now, he was 1 for 6 from 3, only put up 27 DraftKings points, but I think he's due for some regression. I think he has the talent that he could make these Wisconsin wings and bigs come out and guard him. And I think that if he's hitting, he has a chance to go, 4 or 5x at his salary. I really do like Saunders at this price tag. Igor Demon is the, kind of point forward for this team. He can really rack up peripheral stats, really high rebounding and assist rates. He also played north of 30 minutes against VCU. I think that really bodes well for him, especially in this game that's going to be played with much better pace than that VCU game was. And I really do like the idea of getting Dem at $5,300. It's like the cheapest we've seen him all season long. And then Mawat Mag, kind of just a cardio guy, but look, he played 31 minutes against VCU, only took 5 shots. Didn't need to put up 17 DraftKings points. And y'all, will we take 17 DraftKings points at a salary of $3,300? Yes, we will. That's over 5x value. So I'm going back to Mawat Mag. I think he's the premier punt play on this slate. I think that he really makes building out lineups really easy for the rest of, your lineup. I really do like the idea of getting to him $3,300. Just a great punt play. And really, those are the only 3 guys that played north of 30 minutes for BYU. They're starting to play Keba Keita more and more down low, but that kind of regressed against VCU. He only played 20 minutes, but he only needed 20 minutes to put up 29 DraftKings points. My thing is, though, is I don't really enjoy playing bigs against Wisconsin. They're generally pretty good on the interior. They're not like elite shot blockers, but they just kind of just be big and wall up and don't foul you and don't bail you out with free throws. And I don't really know if I want to play Keita against that matchup, knowing that he's only going to play 20 to 25 minutes. All right. Oh, also another guy I'll mention, Fousseyni Traore, supremely high usage player when he's in the game, doesn't play a lot of minutes. Only $3,700 makes him a little bit intriguing, but I would rather just play Mag, take the savings, and know that I'm getting guaranteed minutes in that regard. All right, now let's talk about the Wisconsin side. So in the first game of their NCAA tournament, they took on Montana, and it was a better Blackwell game than it was Tanji. Now, I've really deep dove the numbers to try to figure out, Blackwell or Tanji, right? Well, there's no real good statistic, no real good thing to point to of what's going to tell you whether or not it's going to be a Blackwell game or a Tanji game. Sometimes the other team just tries to really scheme Tanji up and it ends up being a Blackwell game. Sometimes teams, look to speed the game up and ends up being a Blackwell game. Or sometimes John Tanji gets hot and it just becomes a John Tanji game. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. But Blackwell is a guy who's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. He's decent at putting up peripheral stats. His peripheral rates are just a hair better than John Tanji, but he's a much less efficient scorer, which is why, in the game against Montana, he was ahead of Tanji in total DraftKings points because he was 7 for 12 from the field, which was better than Tanji. So I do think you can play both of them. I wouldn't play both of them in the same lineup, but both of them are absolutely going to make my player pool. Tanji in that game only had 27 DraftKings points. He only took 5 shots. Uncharacteristically low shooting volume for Tanji. It's really like Montana went out of their way to try to eliminate him from the game. But I'm going to go back to him, though, even though he did get a price bump. I really wish DraftKings had not given him the price bump, but I'm going to go back to him. I don't really see anybody on BYU being able to stay in front of Tanji or Blackwell. I really think that both of them could have solid games here in this one. And then we got to talk about the rest of the lineup as well. Max Klesmit, he's back from injury. He was not good against Montana. I was hoping he was going to get a price cut. He did not. Kamari McGee kind of played in for Klesmit when he wasn't all that good. Didn't do a whole lot with it. Played 25 minutes, put up 11 DraftKings points. That's another pass. The two bigs for Wisconsin, Crowell and Winter, were both really, really solid. But I don't think this is the best matchup with these BYU bigs. The BYU bigs are big. They block shots. I just don't think that it's necessarily the best spot. The one good news is it seems like Winter, he's not playing a crap ton of minutes, but it doesn't seem like he's needed all that much minutes to score a lot of fantasy points lately. I don't know, man. Winter might make my pool, but it's hard to really sell myself on playing, either of them a lot. All right, 2 games left. This next one is a banger. So my bracket has not been great so far. I haven't really lost anybody that I had really going far. Like I haven't really lost a whole lot of potential points, but I'm missing a lot of the coin flip games in round 1, right? Like I had UCSD over Michigan. I had High Point over Purdue. I had Marquette over New Mexico. I had North Carolina over Ole Miss. Like I'm just missing these 50-50 games, right? I can gain a lot of points on people if Gonzaga beats Houston because I have Gonzaga in my Final Four. I think it's going to happen. Let's talk about why. KenPom has Houston 73-68. That's a game total of 141 points. If you're sitting there thinking, wow, that seems high for a Houston game, it is. Houston games generally don't get this much total. And the 141 is not even that big of a total, but it's a lot for a Houston game. The reason why is because Gonzaga, to me, sets up as a particularly poor matchup for Houston. Gonzaga ranked 7th in the nation in offensive efficiency, 26th on defense, 44th in tempo. They do not turn the ball over a lot. They are a good rebounding team on both sides of the ball. They have no true defensive weaknesses, and they are now a big lineup. The way Houston likes to win games is by beating you on the offensive glass, is by playing super physical defense, limiting you to one shot, which is not a good shot because they're going to play physical. And then on the offensive end, they don't really run a whole lot of sets that generate open shots. They rely on their guards making tough shots, and rely on Joseph Tugler winning in post-ups. That is a path that is going to be made very hard by Gonzaga because Gonzaga is a good rebounding team. Gonzaga is a big team that will not be bullied on the boards. And Gonzaga is a team that will generate quality looks offensively and will make Houston score to beat them. I think Gonzaga is a terrible matchup for Houston, and I hope it plays out that way. Let's talk about the Gonzaga guys. So Graham Ike, he's been great in DFS his entire time at Gonzaga when he stays out of foul trouble. Y'all, I have no faith in him staying out of foul trouble in this game. He's not going to make my player pool. Ryan Nembhard, supreme assist player, leads the nation in assists. Houston's going to slow this game down. You look at what he's done in slowdown games all season long. Against St. Mary's, 109 total points scored, 26 DraftKings points. Against St. Mary's, 141 total points scored, 25 DraftKings points. Against Pacific, 139 total points scored, 25 DraftKings points. Against St. Mary's, 120 total points scored, 36 DraftKings points. Okay, that's 1 out of 5. I don't think it's likely that he gives us a good DraftKings game because of how Houston is going to slow this game down. Khalif Battle was great against Georgia, 9 for 13 from the field, 40 DraftKings points. He has been better than Nembhard in these type of slow game environments, but he's really shot dependent. If the shot's not falling, it's really hard to get a good performance from him, especially when you need like 28 DraftKings points out of him to feel good. He's probably a pass for me. Braden Huff is the guy that you're really going to have to make the decision about. So Braden Huff started against St. Mary's, was great, 32 DraftKings points. Started against Georgia, was great, 39 DraftKings points. It pretty much, I was over the field on Braden Huff. I had him 60% on the main slate, because when I saw he was in the starting lineup, I'm like, this is an easy play. What I failed to do is I didn't put him in any of my survivor lineups. It was a crucial strategy that really killed a lot of my survivors. But he was the play of the slate on Thursday. Now he's priced up to $5,300. Okay, that's, he's still put up back-to-back games of 6X. But now he's going up against Houston. He's going to have to stay out of foul trouble. But if he does, he could absolutely do what he's been doing. He could absolutely put up a 5X value game at this salary in his current role. I really do like Braden Huff. He's going to make my pool. I think he is much more of a GPP play than a survivor play, cash game play against Houston, because Houston is going to look to get him in foul trouble. Houston is going to look to try to bully him on the glass. But I do think that this is a pretty good spot for him, all things considered, at that price tag. Michael Ajayi is like the guy I can't quit. He's a really good fantasy point per minute player. You just never really know what the minutes are going to look like. He's a really good rebounder. So if Mark Few is sitting there thinking, dang, I need more boards, I need to win this game with boards, Michael Ajayi is a guy he could put in there. $3,500, he might be worth a punt. Now, here's the interesting thing about the Houston guys. They beat the brakes off of whatever poor 16 seed they played. Was it SIUE? Yeah, it was SIUE. And none of their guys got there individually from a DraftKings perspective, because they sat them halfway through the game. They just didn't reach their ceiling, right? So now we're getting like season low prices on Uzan, Cryer, Roberts. Like they're super low priced. And they've got a great pace-up matchup in Gonzaga. I never play Houston guys in DFS, but I'm going to play Uzan in this game because it's a pace-up spot, and he puts up a ton of peripheral stats. I think this is a really good spot for him. Cryer, I'm less enthused by, because I generally don't prefer to play scoring-dependent players at high price tags. But the price is low, and he's got a good matchup. I kind of get it. Roberts is the guy I'm probably not playing, though. I'm not sold that he's fully healthy. And I feel like he was this exact way last tournament, and he never got there. So I'm probably not going to be playing him at $6,200. Same with Emmanuel Sharp. And then all Houston backups are getting priced up because they actually had really good games against SIUE. All right, last game of the night is UCLA taking on Tennessee. This is kind of like a game that's like a basketball version of the Spider-Man meme, where it's the two Spider-Mans like point at each other, right? Like these two teams play very similar styles. The KenPom has this one as being Tennessee 67-62. That is a 129-point game total that is tied for last on the slate with the Drake Texas Tech game. Big reason why is that both these teams are going to play defense, and they're going to slow the game down. 313th in tempo for UCLA, 346th for Tennessee, 15th in defensive efficiency for UCLA, 3rd in defensive efficiency for Tennessee. They're going to play defense. They're going to slow the game down. Not good for DFS purposes. However, UCLA, their guys are very intriguingly priced. Like, I really don't mind some of these guys in DFS because of their price tag. So, like Dylan Andrews, he's been kind of frustrating all season long. But one thing we talked about before the Thursday slate was in the Big Ten tournament and right before it, they really moved Sky Clark back into like the ball-dominant point guard distributor role, right? Against Utah State tried to run zone against them. They had Andrews be the distributor again. He put up 8 assists. Is that role going to continue for Andrews? I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily like a super good thing. If it does give him a lot of assist upside, but it would also mean that he's probably being guarded by Zakai Ziegler, who's a great individual defender. $4,900. I think if you're playing like the late night slate where it's like 2 or 3 games, I think I'm willing to pay to find out what his role is going to look like. Sky Clark was also great in that game against Utah State, 23 DraftKings points. He became like the catch and shoot player that we had seen all season long. Was 4 for 7 from 3 in that game. So I don't mind going back to him, but I don't think that this is necessarily a game where he's going to be that hot from 3. The most interesting piece of UCLA, and I have been clamoring for this all season long, is that they need to play Ade Maramore. He's an elite rim protector. He's an elite low post scorer. And he just, every time, like the streak has continued. Every time he plays 20-plus minutes, he puts up 20-plus DraftKings points. Against Utah State, he played 21 minutes, put up 29 DraftKings points. Mick Cronin, you got to play him. You got to. $5,200. on DraftKings, a ton of upside, especially if he plays more minutes. He's going to make my player pool. Now, those minutes came at the expense of Bilodeau and Daly. However, both Bilodeau and Daly are pretty solid per minute players. I really think it's more likely that they come from Bilodeau in this game than Daly. I think they'll move to the 4 quite a bit is what they'll do. So I really think that this is a pretty good spot for Daly at $5,500 as well. Now, on the Tennessee side, here's the interesting thing with Tennessee. If they were to play Ade Maramore, they would have an elite rim protector, UCLA would, right? Because previously, UCLA is not a good 2-point defense. But I don't think that really matters all that much against Tennessee because Chaz Lanier is such a jump shooter that Chaz Lanier can just shoot jump shots all day and not go all the way to the rim. It was very clear in the Wofford game, even though they never really busted that game out, it was very clear that they were going to get the ball to Chaz Lanier early and often very much depend on him for offense. It very much looks like they're using him the way they used Dalton Connect at the end of the season last year. The only problem is Lanier is not as good a peripheral stat guy as Connect was, but he's also cheaper on DraftKings. $7,300 for a guy that's probably going to take 20-plus shots. I do not mind that idea at all. Ziegler is up at $8,200. Ziegler's been great lately, but the problem is that UCLA is going to absolutely slow this game down to a screeching halt, and I worry about his ability to put up peripheral stats in that type of environment. So I'm probably not going to be getting too much Ziegler there at $8,200. Now, they pretty much just played a 7-man rotation against Wofford. It was, Ziegler and Lanier, they're 2 starting guards. Meshack, their lockdown defender. Okpara and Milicic, they're 2 starting bigs. And then Cade Phillip and Jordan Gainey off the bench. Gainey's way too expensive. Hard pass for me. Okpara is too expensive for what his role is. Igor Milicic, I don't know what's happened to him. He was great for most of the season for this team from a DFS perspective. He's basically been non-existent lately, and he just can't stop fouling. If he can avoid getting in foul trouble, he could really be a good play at $5,600. He burned a lot of people on Thursday, so I don't think anybody's going to be rushing to play him, but I do think he's a guy that can come through with you if he just is able to stop fouling, but that's much easier said than done. All right, y'all, that's going to be it for the Saturday slate. So before we leave, if this video helped you in any way, please hit the like button. It really does help me out a ton when you guys do that. If you're listening on audio, please rate and review. Again, this is a big month for me. Help it be a big month for me by help grow the community by doing those 2 things, helping this show pop up in searches, and just helping more people find it. So I really do appreciate it when you guys do that. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode. Hopefully, we gave you guys all the information that you need in order to build a winning lineup this Saturday slate. We will be back for the Sunday slate as well as the rest of the NCAA tournament. So make sure that you are subscribed. And yeah, let's have a fun day. Like I said, I think these are going to be some really good, really entertaining basketball games. And that's kind of the upside of there not being a lot of upsets in the NCAA tournament so far. But the downside is, we still do kind of want some Cinderellas. We do want some buzzer beaters. But I do think that this could be a very solid slate of games. So I'm very much looking forward to it. But anyway, thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck to you guys on the Saturday slate, and I will see you guys next time.